What up, y'all? Welcome into DNVR Rams Live, presented by Natures of Colorado, the Northeastern Colorado dispensary providing top-quality cannabis and a wide variety of products. Remember to use the code DNVR online or mention DNVR in stores to take advantage of their deals. It's February 1st. That means we're a month out from March. This is really the crunch time, and CSU men's hoops coming off of just a momentous victory over San Diego State Tuesday night at Moby Arena up in Fort Collins. Fourth sellout of the year. It was state pride night. It was headband giveaway night. It was Joe Palmer's birthday. And man, the vibes were right. It was just a really cool setting. I was able to go up there with Ryan Green, which was awesome. Make sure you go check out his spotlight over on DNVR Sports. I also have an audio-only podcast out, as well as a couple of written pieces. I'll have another feature coming out later tonight, so all kinds of content. But of course, I got to talk about it with my guy, my partner in crime, Andre Simone. Dre, how's it going? Because I'm not going to lie. Like, after the weekend and everything that happened in Wyoming, I was like, oh, my God, I don't even want to have to do this, because we talked about how big the stretch was coming up.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the Rams, they come out with some resilience. They respond in a major way, have one of their best performances of the season. But just take me through like this last week for you and following this whole process.
It's so true. It's the first time since we've been doing this that I really felt like, ugh, I'm not looking forward to doing the pod this week. Like, that just stunk. And so many things had to line up for that disaster to unfold. But yeah, it really made this game at Moby that much bigger. And what a response. So much of our talking points the last 2 months, Justin, like, the bigs got to play better. Like, when are we going to get a game where Scott, Cartier, and Mbemba, 2 of the 3, play better? And Clifford needs to show his athleticism and really be like at the level of some of these other guys. Like, boy, did Nique fit into that kind of game, huh?
He was awesome. I mean, about as well as you could play.
Off the get, J-Mike. Off the get.
Yeah, I think in the first half alone, he played, it was 14 or 15 minutes, and he had 14 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals in that first half. Like, yeah. He does a little bit of everything, and he's just awesome. So huge for this team in terms of the on-ball defense. The rebounding is one of the biggest things he brings this team. The minute he leaves the floor, it seems like the other team starts getting way more second chance opportunities. He's great at high pointing the ball. But yeah, I felt like his mentality from the very beginning set the tone in this one. And, kind of going back to things we've been talking about for weeks, you finally get out to that hot start, 21-7 run over the first 10 minutes. And yes, San Diego State's going to adjust. They have a really veteran team. 4 or 5 of these guys were a part of that national title run from last year, or, runner-up run. And to be able to come out and get that start, get some confidence, especially after what happened, that everybody in the stands is kind of like, oh man, like, how is CSU going to respond? And I just felt like getting the energy in the building right off the bat was so huge. You didn't blow them out. You never were going to. Yep. But just not having to exert yourself of doing this, 12-point comeback every single night. It's such a hard way to make a living in this league because the teams are too good. And I just felt like it was huge to start strong, weather the storm, and to close strong.
Yeah, 100%. And it was really a team effort, especially the starters. Nique, we talked about. Scott was great.
8 points over the final 5 minutes.
When he hit that 3, I was in disbelief.
It was the dagger. He had a couple of them, and they were huge.
And Cartier's doing, like, it was like such a true, like, they both look like inside-out players, not these undersized bigs where we're kind of forcing a square peg into a round hole. Sometimes it's felt like in some of these games. They fit in so well. They played so flawlessly. Nique was obviously a huge catalyst. Isaiah, the way he just like pulled the strings was masterful. As always, I thought where he really stood out was pushing on the break. I thought that was key in getting out to a hot start, using that home court advantage. And then, once the one time it got a little tight, halfway through the second half?
Yeah, the San Diego State, they had a 6-0 run. They take a 1-point lead, 61-60, with about 7:30 to go. But CSU immediately responds. Patrick Cartier goes down, gets a post-up, nice layup opportunity. After that, you get a steal, transition, and then it's the Nique dunk where he throws it down, and all of a sudden, you're right back up by 6-8 again.
Yeah,
so
Stevens was pushing it, and I mean, everyone was just playing their A game. It seemed like a bit of a dark cloud had been lifted. There was so much more confidence, like less tightness than what we've seen for a while since entering conference play, really.
Yeah, I think, this is a group that had been through it. And I mean, this is always the dog days of the season. There's a ton of energy early on, the excitement, you get the year going, and you feel it in the NBA too, like the lulls of January, February basketball, like what's coming around the corner. And I mean, frankly, the Rams have played a really challenging schedule. If you look at the Ken Pom metrics, CSU's played the most challenging Mountain West schedule as of now, and a lot of that's going to flip. A lot of these teams you had to play on the road, you get an opportunity to play at home.
Right.
And I mean, also vice versa. You still have to go to the pit and VA house, which is brutal. But I just think this was such an important moment for this team because, on the surface, a loss to San Diego State, like that's not going to kill your reputation nationally. That's not going to be the difference between making or missing the NCAA tournament. But just given the fact that you've been in this rough stretch, you had lost 4 of 6, and you're coming off of the worst loss of the Medved era. I mean, he called it the most gut-wrenching loss he's ever been a part of, and that's incredibly accurate. They needed that feel-good moment, and I really want to credit the veterans on this team and the staff for the way they handled it. I don't know if you saw, I shared this on Twitter. A lot of people wrote about it as well, but on Sunday, how they handled things, you could have done it 2 ways. You could fixate on what went wrong, lock yourself in the film room all day, break these guys down, scream, I can't believe you did this. But the reality is, like, they know what went wrong. These are 4th and 5th year guys. They see all the noise on social media. They know they had to live through it. And I just felt like the staff deciding, you want to know what? We're not even going to practice Sunday. We're going to play a team kickball game. It was 60 degrees in the sun. They went out. They had fun, and they let it go. And I think it allowed them to go into that San Diego State matchup kind of just like free, into sense of, like it was a horrible thing that happened over the weekend. It's a new week. And they went in and they attacked from the beginning. They never let up. And they executed at a really high level on both sides of the ball against a team who played well. Like San Diego State played good. They hit shots that they had not been hitting for weeks, and it had me a little nervous. Like, Reese Waters comes out and hits 3 threes in the first half. In the second half, Parrish and Lamont Butler hit a couple of them, and I'm like, oh God, they refuse to go away here. Like, here we go again, this experienced team.
Well, and there's been times in this stretch, this tough stretch, then starting conference play, where I've wondered a bit, like, what tier of defensive team is this? How good are they really defensively? I mean, geez, they look like the better defensive team to me against San Diego State than the Aztecs.
They really set the tone physically.
One of the, like, best defensive teams in the country.
According to Ken Pom, it's the defensive efficiency. It's the best defense in the conference, which makes sense. I mean, you look at who they've got out there, the size, the experience. And really, on both ends. I mean,
they played some of their best offense against that defense, and I think they played some of their best defense that we've seen in 2 months, man. It was really impressive end to end. And I mean, gosh, so much of it to me really comes down to those bigs.
Oh, it was huge. I mean, Cartier and Scott not getting bullied. Bemba had a big 11 minutes off the bench. He didn't do a ton offensively, but they made everything hard on Ledee. He wasn't getting easy post-up looks. Every time they tried to run the pick and roll, CSU would send help at the right time. Like the wings and the guards did a great job of coming on that backside and stripping them and just making them work for everything. And even like, let's see, what do you have here? He had 13 points, I believe. Yeah, 13 points, 6 of 11 from the floor. I'd have to go back and like mark every single one of them. I would bet you 8 of those were putbacks. Like, he really was not much of a factor in this one. And this is a guy who was, in my opinion, the biggest part of their NCAA championship run last year. Like, he's a guy that can give you 30 and 15 just like that.
I mean, it was really big. And I do think, and we saw this change within the last couple weeks, I think the way Strong and Lake are playing is much better than what we were seeing earlier in the season.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things that I hit on my takeaways piece. Because my first story, a lot of it's on Nique and Zay, which makes sense. Those two combined for 40. Yeah. They scored or assisted on 27 of 28 made field goals, which is just insane.
Nuts.
But there were key moments, and especially the starting lineup. Jalen Lake had a couple of key defensive instances where he's able to muck things up. He had a couple of instances where he has the ball in transition. He's running the break, makes a perfect pass to a guy like Nique instead of trying to force something. Josiah Strong had a really important strip of Ledee, which leads to a transition layup for Zay, which you brought up. He also had a shot contest when San Diego State's done they're down 6 or 7 with about 90 seconds to go, and it's still in that right. If they get a 4-0 run here, then all of a sudden, you're playing for fouls and stuff. Yeah. They just made really good decisions all night long, and I really think it started from the beginning. They missed a 3-point attempt to start the game. Nique gets a putback. Then that second possession, he has the ball in the corner. He drives, and instead of settling for a jumper, which was open, he spins on his guy, gets to the hoop, easy layup. And all night, it was just that. It was, this is a good shot. I'm going to work it for 8 more seconds, and we're going to get a great shot. And I just think that's what Medved meant when he came on our show a couple of weeks back, and he's talking about, some of these shots are open, but I think there are times where we need to be just a little bit pickier. And I felt like both in the half court and in transition when it's do we pull up here? Do we take this jumper? Do we try and get to the rim? Every single time they made the right decision in this one.
Such a better flow.
Yes.
It was just such a better flow. And I mean, in a lot of ways, it was this is the team that got us so excited that first month and a half.
They reminded, the Mountain West who they are. And I think obviously Wyoming is its own deal. Honestly, if we're talking about the struggles and you're talking about Wyoming, it's its own deal.
It's its own deal.
But they didn't have a bad loss before that. And the thing was, is everyone was trying to group it into one large struggle. And it's it's not really that. Every game hasn't been the same. There have been some things that have been consistent, like the inability to knock down jump shots. And it's still not great. 7 of 21 is better. But I liked that they were selective. And you're going to shoot 20 to 21 in this offense. You're going to put 23s up pretty much every game. Yeah. I like that it wasn't 30, 35 threes like it was, in these other games. They made an effort to get to the paint, and I think finishing +8 in the paint was a big deal because, like I said, San Diego State actually shot better from deep than they tend to.
This was the one you had to have. The road woes are concerning, but they're happening across the country. They're happening everywhere in the conference. And the only way you're going to make up for the struggles on the road is take care of business at home.
I think the top 6 teams have a total of 2 home losses.
Sounds right. New Mexico.
3. Boise's lost at home twice. New Mexico's lost at home once. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts right there. So, I mean, every road win, even against the lower side of our power rankings, which you'll do soon enough,
there's no easy games. This Fresno game this weekend. Fresno should have beat Boise at home. They were frisky against UNLV. Wyoming, which the way you lost it, that's tragic, but they're a team that's on the rise. They've won 4 of 5 that, they're all of a sudden have an identity. They play tough.
Yeah.
There's going to be a team in that 6, 7, 8 range that screws somebody in this top 6 and makes them have to play an extra day in that Mountain West tournament. And that's the thing that I was talking about on the pod that I recorded last night was just that, realistically, you're still probably out of the Mountain West title race regular season. You're a full 3 games back. That's a lot of ground to make up in a month. Now, we never know. I mean, as we saw, New Mexico falls last night at home, you drop a couple of road games, you take care of business at home. If you're able to steal one against, a San Diego State or a New Mexico on the road, maybe. But the big thing for CSU in this tight Mountain West is you just want to ensure that you finish in the top 5. You don't want to have to play that extra day in the Mountain West tournament because it's hard enough to win 3 in 3 days, but to have to do 4 in 4 days after this gauntlet and with, a pending NCAA tournament coming up the weekend after that, that's just not a spot you want to be in. The top 5 teams in this league are going to make the big dance. Maybe 6. Maybe the 6th bid Mountain West is still alive, especially after Boise beating New Mexico on the road last night. this was a massive win in the big picture on just so many levels, like in the Mountain West standings and the NCAA tournament picture, just in the general vibe standpoint of getting everybody back on track and like getting the fans feeling good again and like having fun.
Yeah. And I mean, internally, the vibes I think are huge right here because you're just at look, this season's been super competitive. This conference, super competitive. It's super tight. Every game matters. Every win counts so much more. Every loss counts so much more. You needed the players themselves to get some of that confidence back. You needed Moby to get, to reaffirm itself as a really important home court in this conference. And I feel like you did that. And that was massive. And Wyoming will linger, but there's ways to make up for it. Making up for the San Diego State game was going to be way harder.
Well, and Wyoming has shown they're a good team at home. They kicked the hell out of Nevada at home. That it's a tough place to play. It's the highest altitude in college basketball. 8-1. They're Wyoming, UNLV. Like these are teams that if those are the 7th and 8th best teams in your league, that's a damn good conference.
It's pretty nuts, buddy. It's really pretty nuts.
You know what else is pretty nuts, incredible. Though? The amazing deals with our friends at Circle K.
Let's go. We're just enjoying some gummies. Incredible deals. I've almost run out of my 5 fill-ups because I signed up for, phone number, app, boom. Now my first 5 fill-ups, 25 cents off. Kate's got to do that now so that I can now punch her number in.
Yeah, take advantage.
And get another 5 fill-ups.
If you have a young child, it might be economically sensible to sign up for them like a phone number so that you could just save get them a burner or something like that. One of those track phones.
That's right.
Sign up, save 25 cents a gallon for your next 5 fill-ups. That's a huge deal, guys.
I'm at the pump. It feels like the old days.
It feels like 15 years ago.
Back in the day before there was a Russian conflict. These are really good gas prices I'm getting. It's really incredible.
Well, with Circle K, the free membership, you can get the app. It's easy to download. You can just scan the QR code right on the screen.
Scan away.
Like we said, you're going to save 25 cents a gallon for your first 5 fill-ups. That alone is worth signing up. But on top of that, your first 5 Polar Pops are free. So you're going to save 25 cents a gallon every time you fill up. You can get 5 free sodas. After that, every 6th item is going to be free on things like Polar Pops, donuts, dispensed beverages. It really is awesome. Sign up with the QR code on the screen or visit www.circlek.com/innercircle for more information. Get a free any size Polar Pop from Colorado Circle K by texting DNVR to 31310. That's DNVR to the number 31310. Message and data rates may apply. Periodic recurring messages per month. Terms and conditions can be reviewed at circlek.com. Additionally, if you are going to hit your Circle K, you're going to get some snacks, you're going to go home, you're going to make the right decision. You also want to make sure you hit up the Dispo on the way home because, if you're sitting watching, a little basketball, you got your gummies, maybe you got some cheddar, caramel popcorn action. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
You might want yourself a little pre-roll or, a gummy or something like that. And with Natures of Colorado, it's the best way to get access to an amazing grade of cannabis and a vast variety of products. Check them out for all your needs. Infused edibles, high-potency concentrates, some of the best flower in the state. There are 4 Natures of Colorado locations in Colorado, Log Lane Village, Garden City, Sedgwick, and Milliken. It is the go-to dispo in northeastern Colorado. Remember, save time by ordering online at naturescolorado.com. What's awesome, you don't even have to get out of your car. All of their locations have drive-thrus. Some of their deals include a $99 ounce every day, but if you use that code DNVR, you can get any shelf ounce for $85. So you could get a top shelf ounce for what's normally the pre-weighed stuff. So that's a great deal. Exquisite Extracts 2-gram bucket for $15. Remember to use the code DNVR online or mention DNVR in stores.
Let's go.
Shout out them. Anything else you want to say on CSU specifically before we kind of transition here, talk about the league as a whole? We'll actually talk a little bit of football at the end. East-West Shrine game going on tonight.
Love that.
Dre and I just wrapped up the draft pod. Go check that out if you missed it. So we'll be talking about that. But these next couple weekends, you got to be locked in on the Mountain West because this is where it's all going to get decided.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun league to follow. Every game, the stakes just feel so high, and Like every road win just feels monumental. Like I was shocked when, I caught parts of the game, then I did whatever else and went to bed early or what have you. But I was shocked when I saw Boise was able to upset New Mexico. Shocked.
Max Rice, he a dog. 35 points in the pit, man.
Dude.
And he's been struggling. He's a high volume shooter. Statistically been actually like one of the least inefficient guys in the country. He's taken a lot of heat. He's obviously Leon Rice's son. Whenever you're the coach's son, that's going to draw some criticism if you're not playing well. People being like, daddy ball, this and that. But Max Rice can play. Like I'll tell you this, Boise fans. Like that's not like a charity rotation minute. Like I promise you, that's a dude that's been a thorn in CSU's side for 3 years now. I thought it was cool to see him have that moment. Admittedly, I have a pretty hard time rooting for Boise in anything. Leon Rice is a big whiner. He drives me nuts. But shout out to Max Rice. A massive win for Boise State, who now has a couple of big wins away from home. They beat Nevada on the road. Nevada's kind of fallen off. They're no longer in the top 6, but still a really good team.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like every road game's monumental. It's so fun to follow this.
Well, and it's what's so massive for CSU. Like, you have to steal this one against Fresno because, like, just objectively, it's going to be easier to win in Fresno than it is in Viejas or the Pit or...
No, you have to.
Even Vegas or something like that.
You have to. And like, they get a road win against one of those top teams, I'm going to be hyped.
And they've still got a couple of opportunities.
Sweet.
I would like to see them get one.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
It's not a situation where I'm going to like use that against them if they can't beat San Diego State or New Mexico on their own. I'm like, this team's not going to be able to translate in the tournament. They have 5 wins away from Moby, including 2 true road wins. But like, these are the ones that mean more, like beating Greeley is fun and all that. But, go get you one in Vegas. Go get you one over San Diego State or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's how loaded this league is. It's how competitive it is. It's how many good teams, good players you have in it that ups the stakes, that makes you care, that makes you want it more, right? Like, that makes it cooler when you actually achieve things.
100%. There's validity to it. In every sense of the term, the Mountain West is a high major basketball league this year.
Big time.
Like,
Big time.
And it's not just me saying it. Like, people will come in and, you're some Mountain West guy. I'm like, so is Heat Check College Basketball Central, John Rothstein, CBS. Go watch them all. They will tell you this league, it's as hard to earn a win on the road in this league as anywhere else. So
it's true.
Massive trip coming up for CSU. I'll get into this game more tomorrow. Going to have the homie Ben Girding back on, friend of the podcast. We'll dive into the Mountain West as a whole. We'll talk CSU, maybe a little Buffs. We'll even talk Duke, North Carolina on Saturday. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Huge weekend coming up in college basketball. And with that in mind, the updated Mountain West Power Rankings. We've had a ton of movement from last week because we have had a lot of action in this league and a lot of signature wins.
Would you believe it?
It's getting harder and harder because you can't just do it off head-to-head because everybody has beaten somebody who has lost to somebody who has beaten somebody, and that's what this league is going to get. So if you want to just go straight by the standings, that's fine. I don't think that's necessarily indicative of who's playing the best ball right now. We'll get into all that. But number 11, it pains me. I love you, Tim.
Yeah.
I love you, Cardenas. Yep. San Jose State's in the cellar, though. There's not much to say about it. They don't have the depth.
Tough.
They blew a couple of key opportunities early on in the year to get wins against some of the teams in the bottom third of the league, and now you're in a situation where it's just going to be really tough night in and night out for them.
Speaking of Tim Miles, Nebraska having a nice hoop season, huh?
They've quietly pretty good.
Around a little bit.
I can't remember his name. They have this little 3-point shooter. I believe he's a Japanese guy.
I was just checking them out.
Threes. A lot of fun to watch. So, Huskers basketball, weirdly fun to watch.
Odd. Very odd. Yes, I'm in on them against Wisconsin tonight.
I like that. I might trail you on that.
Kesei Tominaga.
Not even going to try. Number 10, we're going Air Force Falcons. you could 10 through 8, I think, are all you could kind of make an argument that it could be any order you want. I like
10 through 8, really?
Yeah, I just think a lot
that deep.
Yeah, well, I mean, like 10, 9, and 8. Like, I think you could say, like, depending on what.
I get 10 and 9. 8 seems like a bit of a stretch. 8 to me feels like in a tier of their own.
I meant to say 11 through 9. Yes.
Oh, got you.
Sorry.
No, that makes sense.
Yes.
That makes sense. Yes.
I was looking at it and it was my brain.
But I do think Fresno, the better of those three.
They have the most size. They can play the best defense.
They've been the friskiest. Is that fair to say? I guess Air Force has had some
Air Force kicked
moments.
the shit out of UNLV in Vegas and took CSU to OT in Fort Collins.
You forget about that.
They just don't have any depth. That's the hard part about them.
San Jose State's kind of been frisky at times.
That's the thing. Is like you're splitting hairs.
Right,
None
Jay,
of these
Mike.
are great teams.
You're right.
But like any of these bottom three, if you were like, did you see San Jose State upset Nevada tonight? Or like, did you see Air Force was able to beat, San Diego State might be a stretch, but you know what I mean.
For sure.
But so Falcons, we love the military. God bless the USA. Fresno State at number 9.
Don't insult anyone now either, though.
That was genuine. I like that song. I didn't sing it genuinely, but it is a banger. Yeah, look, Fresno's not a good team. They're frisky at home. If you're the Rams, you need to go into this. It's going to be a stale environment.
I'm so terrified, man.
I'm kind of like, I like that it's not going to be going into the pit, going into Logan. You don't have to go into that. But also, there's an element of that kind of brings the best out of you. Whereas when you're playing a team that's kind of frisky and it's just dead.
Yes.
I worry if you have a slow start. Like,
Fave, you're expected to win and on the road. It's a tough one.
You have to generate
it's a tough proposition.
Your own intensity, and that's going to be really key for the CSU team. You're coming off the big win. You can't be feeling yourself too much. I think they've learned.
It tests your teamness, man.
Yeah, and I do think that the veteran presence of this team is huge. Like, I don't worry about it as much if it was a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. But
I'm kind of hoping the Wyoming loss was a bit of a turning point.
I think it is. It was hard.
There's a bit of like, we're good, but we've not played our best too often, and we can't keep accepting that.
They needed to flip a switch, and I feel like they did against San Diego State. Now, can you sustain it? That's the big question mark for this team.
Totally, man.
They played really high-level basketball for 2 straight months. So do I think it's possible? Yeah, because I've seen them do it.
Absolutely.
But, these are the dog days. This is really when you show what you're made of. And
for sure.
Again, I think it's all going to come down to mentality. And then just like they did against San Diego State, like, can you just do the basics?
Yeah.
Can you attack the rim? Can you share the ball? Can you not turn it over? Can you take their turnovers and create it into transition opportunities? Can you get to the free throw line? Can you not give up a million free throws? Like, all these little things. It's not like they've played awful in any of these losses. They've had awful stretches for a couple minutes at a time, but they really haven't had a game this year. Like, for instance, they went to Boulder last year, just got the absolute brakes beaten off of them. They haven't had one of those. I just want to see them find the consistency. When this team scores 75 points, they're 15-1. So
that's the thing. Like, it's why I want them to up the pace. The more high scoring, we've talked about it. Like, that's where they're going to be at their best.
And that's why it was so pertinent to get to the rim, to play inside out, because this team is a good jump shooting team, not a great jump shooting team. 100%. They have some good jump shooters and some really great scorers, but as a whole, it's not the Warriors. It's not they have some guys, and I think that Josiah Strong, Jalen Lake, all these guys are better 3-point shooters than they've shown, and maybe those numbers even out a little bit, and that'd sure be nice at the end of the season. You have this mentality, and all of a sudden, instead of 33% from 3, you're 48% from 3, and that's a 6 to 9 point difference per game. Just increase your margins a little bit. We got sidetracked a little bit there, but huge game coming up against Fresno State for CSU. One you can't afford to lose, but don't let that number 9 ranking make you feel like this is going to be a cakewalk, because it won't.
No. And at 8, you have 16-5 Nevada. Just crazy.
They've lost 4 or 5. Now, their win was over CSU, obviously, a big one at home. They get a prime Kobe performance from Blackshear and Lucas. Right after that, I think those two combined to go like 6 of 31. So, it's kind of like what we were talking about even after that game. Yes, this sucks. It was frustrating, but I mean, when their two best players have the game of their life, very similar if you're San Diego State sitting here being like, look, we played pretty well on the road. Nique Clifford and Isaiah Stevens went for 40 on, and sometimes the best players just carry you to victory. This is a Nevada team who I think their ceiling is on par with anybody when they play their best game, but the lack of consistency worries me, and they are so dependent on Lucas and Blackshear that I just wonder, are you going to be able to have enough to get to the finish line here? And they're not going to. The problem if you're Nevada,
hell of a duo to rely on, though.
Oh, they're great. And that's I could totally see those two just getting hot. The scary part, though, if you're Nevada or mostly Nevada, everyone else's non-con is pretty good. New Mexico a little bit too. You don't have the non-conference metrics that CSU has, that San Diego State has, that even Boise, even though they didn't have the quality wins, they played a lot of good teams.
Or UNLV, who you have next.
Or UNLV. Yeah. And I went
this
back and forth. This
is a crazy stretch. The 6-7 is really fun.
So UNLV, they've won 2 out of their last 3. They should have won the 3rd before that, and they blew it. They're a team whose talent is probably top 3 in the league. I mean, the Boone brothers are really good. They've got some guys that can score. They just don't play cohesively as a unit. When I watch them, I don't understand what they are trying to accomplish. And that's the thing that frustrates me is like CSU, they have an identity. Boise State, they have an identity. San Diego State, Utah State, they all have an identity. UNLV feels like watching a pickup game where it's like, they got some hoopers out there and they're going to have some nice stretches. But man, when things get tough.
I mean, that's what's crazy is that's their identity. They're like the talented team that plays with no fucking clue and might be good one day and might be kind of a disaster the next.
And that's why they're frustrating because it's a program that just completely underachieves. And they're a program that hurts the other teams, like CSU, for instance. They sweep CSU 2 years ago because they're not able to do anything with Bryce Hamilton. He just goes off in back-to-back games. That UNLV team was they finished 2nd in the league, but they were a 500 team in non-conference play. They're a super frustrating program. The talent is there. We got a question here. Am I dumb for thinking the Rams should almost be favored in the Mountain West tournament? Hard to see a team on paper better built for a tournament than the Rams. I think it's still got to be Utah State, just because they have at this point, when you look at the road wins that they have, only 2 losses. I think you got to give it to them, but I have said all year that I do feel like this is a team whose style of play should translate in the tournament setting. So I would agree with you, Jacob. When you have high-level point guard play, you play cohesive defense on night to night, and you've got a couple of athletic bigs that are, versatile. That should be a benefit because they can kind of match up with different styles of teams. But we'll see. I would not put CSU as the favorite right now, though.
You're certainly more equipped to speak on all these other teams. I'd say for the Rams to re-enter that tier of being the favored going into the tournament, the depth needs to come back. We talked about Lake and Strong. I think that's huge for the depth.
Now you need Joe and Bemba and all these guys. Javante Johnson, who's seemingly taken Tavy's minutes.
But especially Joe and Mbemba. Those guys were key pieces of the rotation in the non-conference.
And they're still doing they're still going for rebounds, diving for loose balls. They're still doing the hustle stuff that you love. But they're not knocking down those
8th, 9th guys that they were 2 months ago.
And that's the thing. Joe Palmer, if he can be a guy that gives you 10 off the bench, all of a sudden that dynamic switch is...
Well, and the spacing. You just talked about the jump shooting on this team. Good, not great. Well, when your 8th man is giving you 10 quick points because he got hot and he's 2 of 6 from the stripe and then gives you those hustle plays and whatever, then it becomes a little different.
I'm with you. They need more out of the rotation. That's been an issue now for about 3 straight games. I think the starters scored 71 of 79 points in this one. So you need more out of them. Point blank period. Yeah. We're not saying they're terrible or anything like that. You love the effort.
It was such a strength though earlier in the season when saying what Jacob's saying was when you were so overwhelming, right? Yeah. That we got to be in that stratosphere. You got to get back to that.
Agreed. And that was what made San Diego State so dangerous last year. Like their starting five was really good and they were experienced. They could do hockey subs. They went 10 deep, and typically you don't do that. Typically you're only going to go like 7, 8 deep in your rotation, but the Rams need to be able to overwhelm you with their depth, which has not necessarily been the case. Of late, same deal, like they need to be a great offense because I think they're a good defense, not a great defense. They play effort, they play discipline, but, you know, like they don't have like, I don't know, like a Jalen House on-ball type point guard defender. Isaiah's made massive strides, and I think he's underrated as a defender, but he's not like a lockdown, lock down your guard. They don't have that 7 foot or, who's going to completely shut down the paint, but got to get that offense going. We got Wyoming at 6.
Huge.
They are hot right now. They're great at home. They just finally got a road win. They convincingly beat Air Force in the Springs. I question their depth, but I mean, they were able to beat CSU on a day they weren't able to shoot the ball well, which really that had been their recipe for success all year. They're a team that shoots the hell out of the 3 ball. I certainly would not want to be matched up with them in the Mountain West tournament. They feel like a team that could get hot for a couple of games, hit some shots, and ruin somebody's day. I also think that as fun as that win was for them, and give them all the props, I'm not trying to diminish it or anything like that, I do think talent-wise there is a clear gap between them and these top 5 teams, and I think they're not even as talented as UNLV or Nevada.
No way,
they're just playing better basketball right now.
For sure. And it's the power rankings. It's the assessment of where the stock currently lies for each team at present. So that's why you got that, and that's probably why you organized 4 and 5 the way you did.
I think you could go either way. I put San Diego State 5, CSU 4. To me, they're very similar, and neither team has done much on the road. Both teams have been awesome at home. Both teams have great veterans. Both teams have the capability to put it on, but have been a little bit up and down. So if all things are generally the same, your record is essentially the same. CSU takes it because you just played head-to-head 36 hours ago.
And kind of same with 2-3?
Yeah, same deal. Like, I think New Mexico, Boise State, you're right there in the same range. Boise State going into the pit and winning the way they did last night. That's the most impressive conference win of the season. Boise's ceiling is really high because they're defensively, it's them or San Diego State. Those are the best 2 defenses in the conference.
Yeah.
Degenhart is such a force. Stanley's a guy who can get hot shooting. The key for them is they didn't really have that third guy. Now, if Max Rice can be what he was last night, and he's not going to go for 35 every night.
Sure.
But if he can give him 15 a night, that completely changes the picture of this team. They make me nervous. I'll say that. Boise's a very good team. Their problem is they've had 2 losses at home that and they blew it both times against UNLV and Utah State. They're up. They could, be a 1-loss conference team right now. And
I just watch them offensively, and there's just some moments where it's like, geez.
They don't have Roddy Anderson is a true point guard trying to play in a system that doesn't want a true point guard. And there are just times where it seems like they don't know where to go with the ball. If Degenhart isn't able to just own in the paint, if Stanley's not cashing threes,
they get
real stagnant and they start jacking up shots and it becomes ISO heavy. So I don't love that. I don't love their style of play.
Zone up against them, right?
I would.
Now, again, I'm a dude on a couch. I'm not trying to say I have the answer to how to stop. I'm just it seems they're kind of boring offensively, and it seems fairly
well. And then, but then they'll have
stop
an Andrew Meadow like he did against CSU, hits 4 threes, where it's like, are you
fucking
cool?
I know.
Role players always better at home, though.
Hey, man.
Number 1, Utah State, man. What they have been able to accomplish this year.
They've separated themselves.
Yeah, their resume speaks for itself at this point. Their in-conference resume is by far the strongest. I would argue that their non-conference resume, although super impressive, maybe wasn't the quality of wins wasn't quite there with CSU, with San Diego State, who beat Gonzaga on the road. CSU gets the win over Creighton. It's undeniable at this point. They're winning at home, they're winning on the road, they're beating top 6 teams. Great Osabor is firmly in the conversation for Mountain West Player of the Year. Danny Sprinkle would be my favorite to be Coach of the Year, just given he literally replaced the entire roster.
They've just elevated once conference play started, and they're the one team you can say that about.
And like, as much as I'm complaining about Boise not having an identity, Utah State has an identity on both sides of the ball, man. Everything they do is meticulous. They're the anti like UNLV, where it's, yeah, that guy's a great athlete, but what the hell are you doing? Every pass has purpose, every set, everything is with design. They switch effectively defensively. I really like this Utah State team. Hell of a job. Before we get out of here, before we talk a little bit of football, shout out to the homies over at Breckenridge Brewery. Breck Brew has been with us since the beginning. They've been doing it for 33 years. It all comes down to their love and passion for making good beer. Some of our favorites include Mountain Beach Sour, the Fun Slinger, fun to say, fun to crush. Check out the Breck Beer locator at breckbrew.com to find a brew near you. Also, Fubo TV is the easiest way to watch all of your Colorado sports. You can get Altitude. You can get CBS Sports Network, FS1, FS2. Keep up with all things Mountain West. I mean, really all things college basketball.
Yeah,
on top of that, movies, whatever you need, 140 plus live channels.
Saw Nathan For You, free on demand on there.
Perfect. 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included with no extra charge.
Yeah, man.
And the best thing is, unlike cable, it's no contract, no cable, no hassle.
It's so
You can just sign up and start watching. You can do a free trial literally right now. Watch all your favorite NFL action, all your favorite college basketball action with Fubo. Go to www.fubotv.com/DNVR. That's www.fubotv.com/DNVR. Sign up for 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro, or just scan that QR code on the screen.
Awesome.
All right. Like I said, I will have more hoops content coming out over the next 24 hours, so make sure that you guys keep your eyes locked out on that. If you haven't checked out the takeaways or the written feature that I already have up from Tuesday night, that's over on the site, as is Ryan Green's Spotlight, available on YouTube. So sick. He is the best in the business.
Yeah, we got lots of love for that. You got an Isaiah Stevens jersey?
Yeah, my guy, shout out Nique Trewarta. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. I asked him dude, the CSU community is just, it's unreal.
Yeah,
I get so emotional about it,
really
but
great.
It was just cool. Like when I go up there, and obviously right now with it being sellout crowds, a lot of the people there, they're the diehards. They're locked in, the type of people that are, listening to our content.
Yeah.
But Ryan was just giving me crap because he's like, you walk in there and like you're the mayor. People are dapping you up courtside. They're giving you stuff. And I'm not saying that because I'm not going to be, oh, I'm so cool, I'm Mr. CSU or anything like that.
Style.
It's just like, it's unreal to me that CSU fans care that much, that they're willing to get gifts for me, man. And
really cool.
Support the show and just everything. It means the world. So much love to all of you. Much love to all you in the comment section. If you give us a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. Shout out to my guy, Jacob Kennedy. Better late than never, brother. Does Sprinkle leave after this offseason? Asking us about Utah State's coach. That's the great dilemma. The funny thing is Utah State, they have had a ton of success these last couple of years, and they're like averaging a new coach every other year. They don't put a ton of investment in there. So the fact that they're able to have this sustained success amidst the turnover is really pretty damn impressive. Yeah. I guess we'll see. I'll say he sticks around for at least one more year. That's my gut. But they sure have a hell of a time hanging on to coaches there in Logan, which is weird because like it's a fun arena. The fans are engaged. It just comes down to money is really all it comes down to. But we shall see. Before we get out of here, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on this because by the time you guys are listening to this, the East-West Shrine game will already be going if you're listening to the audio side. But Mo Kamara, Dallin, Holker, Chigozie, Anusiem are all competing in the East-West Shrine game tonight. I was surprised that Mo especially did not get a Senior Bowl invite, but based on everything that I have been able to read and kind of see, it seems like he has really flashed as a pass rusher in the one-on-one drills, which is exactly what you expect.
Yeah, totally.
Holker's had some nice moments as a pass catcher. It's a year where the tight end class is not particularly deep.
Yeah.
Just generally speaking, and we've kind of talked about some of this before, but what are your thoughts on those two guys, especially as pro prospects? And we'll get into a little bit on Chiggy too. Yeah,
I mean, Mo is obviously in a different tier. He's in a deep-ish edge rushing class.
You think that's why he didn't get the invite? Just the depth of the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I honestly don't know because I think he's definitely like...
He feels like the archetype for the guy that gets invited.
Totally.
Usually.
He's well within the range. So I'm not so sure because when you put the tape on, it's been a couple years where the leverage and power he plays with, that first step explosiveness, his hands, he's developed his pass rush move. He's really been a formidable force. And I'm not surprised at all that he's standing out in the East-West Shrine. Holker's interesting because he's a receiving tight end. How great of an athlete is it? Especially since he's an older prospect, right?
I just wonder, I feel like he has the body of more of being a traditional inline tight end, but that's not his game. He's not a blocker.
Bit of a one-trick pony.
He's more of a pass catcher. Yeah. Is he going to be able to run well enough to get separation against NFL DBs, even some NFL linebackers with the way they move these days?
So more of a gadget player almost.
I think he could have a role. I just think he needs to be in a system.
Starter or rotational player at a premium position. Holker's we need a system that might carry two tight ends, that is going to rely on a second tight end who might be more inclined as a receiving tight end and doesn't rely on speed as much. I
could see him being like a red zone guy. And he's got sure hands. He runs good routes. He's not like...
He runs good routes. And look, raw athleticism isn't everything. The guy gets open.
That's what I mean. He just finds space, which I love.
4.7 to me.
Agreed. And he's a hard guy to bring down. He's deceptively, and granted, some of the Mountain West DBs that are missing tackles on him, that's not going to happen in the league. But he's a little shifty when he's running. He's got some wiggle to him. He's able to make some DBs miss where you're like, damn, I was really surprised he took that 30 yards.
Well, good tight ends who maybe aren't freak athletes, they all have that.
Yeah.
They all have that. So that's encouraging to me.
He's going to interview well. But I think as far as the draft eval process, it's the age that works against him. He's already 24 years old.
Big time.
And it's just the fact that he's, like you said, kind of a one-trick pony. You'd like a little bit more versatility from him as a blocker, I think. I still think he has a good chance to get drafted, but I think it's probably that late 6th, 7th round range.
It's just when you're a football player who your mere presence on the field gives away what kind of play call may be coming up, that's a tough sell for NFL coaches. Just because you don't want to give away
especially
your
when
play.
You're 24 years old.
Yeah, when you line up, would be a fun guy to see stay local in those local pro days and maybe get a chance in Sean Payton's offense.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. They don't have a pass catcher right now.
They've got the opportunity.
They have the man-hurts tight end, the guy who can be that inline traditional
Healthy
blocker.
Dulcich.
Yes, I'll believe it when I see it, but yes.
That's right. No, when I talk to my friends who maybe aren't dialed in, it seems that Dulcich has entered the Juwan James, I don't believe he exists anymore type, where it's okay, yeah, I got it. Haha, you're funny.
Are birds real?
Yeah, exactly. That's what Greg Dulcich is at right now. So, no, I'll be interested to see how he runs and is evaluated. Mo, on the other hand, I think that's the guy who's going to go in the 3rd round or so and have his say in how his NFL career goes.
What's the highest you could see Mo Kamara going?
Late 2nd?
So mid-50s?
If you told me he goes higher than Utah defensive end Jonah Ellis, well, I think they're in the similar tier of prospect. Jonah might be on the higher side of that tier. Mo might be on the lower side. For most analysts, I'm not even saying for myself. If you told me in 3 months, he ended up going higher than Jonah Ellis, I'm surprised. I'm far from shocked. I'm surprising, but yeah, I see it.
I'm going to say, this is just a shot in the dark for fun, but I think it is kind of the range where he'll go. Mo Kamara selected with the 58th overall pick of the NFL draft. That's what I think he goes a little earlier than people think. Now, I asked you last time, I was like, do you think you can go top 75? I think firmly he will go top 75.
Yep.
I think he's going to go right around that 60 range, though, and I think he's going to go just ahead of it. So I'm going to say 58, which would be 3 picks after Trey McBride was drafted. I believe he was 55 for Arizona.
Sounds right.
It's kind of that
Sounds
like
right.
Weston Richburg range where a lot of people were kind of surprised by that. But, you know, if you watched Weston Richburg over their years, it made sense where you're just like, yeah, maybe his ceiling's not quite that as some of these other guys. But also, like, you could just put him in the lineup and forget about it for the next 5 years.
Weston certainly justified that pick.
If he wouldn't have gotten hurt, he'd still be a starter in the league today.
Big time, yeah.
I don't see how a guy like Mo doesn't translate. I can't see it. Like, he's got the traits, he's got the resume, the relentless motor. Like, Henry, when I was talking to him the other day, he compared the motor to like a James Harrison type player. Huh. I like that. Kind of like stand up, coming off the edge, man. The bend, really beating a tackle, like just a guy that's going to wear you down. I don't hate that. You've made
the Shaq comparison before. Joey Porter might not be off either.
I think Porter is a really good comp.
He doesn't
especially
feel
young
that
Porter.
Far off.
Young Porter that's rushing the passer
Rams.
still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Porter turned more into like a traditional off-ball linebacker as he got older.
No, I'm saying early
coming out of CSU, Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly what he is. I love it. Chigozie Anusiem, we're rooting for him as well. Think he's more of a UDFA path. I just don't think he has the film or the production in terms of the PBUs. But
so he's going to have to sell people on his size and athleticism.
And he can move
Combine's
well.
big for him. Combine's big.
It's huge for him.
Yeah.
We shall see. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. Make sure you keep up with all the CSU Hoops content we've got coming your way this weekend. Keep up with all our draft coverage. We will be live every Thursday, 3 p.m., which will be followed by this Rams show, so you can get the double the trouble 2 straight hours of JTM and Dre. Shout out to Tiffany behind the sticks, making all our dreams come true. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
All silly like the mayor.